You're watching Conscious Mind Tripping with your host, Audrey Newmont.
It's Wednesday night. It must be time for another Conscious Mind Tripping podcast with me, Audrey Newmont. So I want to start out by saying, in case you missed it last night, Nick had Ken Klee on Mainstream Metaphysics, and it was off the hook. The comments were insane. Those two were amazing. So if you didn't get to see it, I highly, highly recommend checking it out. And I think I might have to see if I can get that Ken Klee on this show too, because he is just phenomenal. You can look him up at Klee Ministries. And so just really wanted to give a shout out for that. And if you missed my last show with Michelle Guzzi, that I think was great too. We shared a lot of, I think, pretty interesting information that can be very useful. And then I also wanted to mention that just yesterday, I was on a podcast with Sheena Metal for the Sheena Metal Experience. She's dynamic. I mean, Sheena is like a whole bundle of things wrapped up into one fabulous package. So you can check that out on, actually, I posted it on my Facebook, and you can look at it on YouTube. So those are some of the things that have been happening around here. And I wanted to also give one more shout out to Dr. Nancy Sachs. I went to her yesterday with a friend of mine, and then again today. And not only is she an excellent doctor, I mean, she can look in when she puts this stuff on my forehead and on my hands, on my ankles, on my wrists and my ankles. And she was literally picking up on some of the stuff that's been kind of bothering me in my body, and the machine that she's got me attached to is healing at the same time as she's reading it and giving me, information. It's giving her information. But then also she gave me supplements, which I took right afterwards, and already I'm feeling better. So big shout out to Nancy. And if you missed the podcast with her, it was 2 weeks ago. So love that. And I also want to say, with announcements, you can go to newmontcenter.net, and we have some fabulous things coming up. We have on the 18th another psychic panel, which actually Sheena is going to be our newest member. And so that is going to be on the 18th, and that panel will be from, I believe it's 11 to 2. Highly recommend. If you can't be in person, it's going to be on Zoom. But you've got 4 psychics who do all these amazing things that are right there answering questions. So it's a lot of fun for me because some of the people in the audience are my clients. So when they're asking a question and then the psychics are answering, it's like they're on target. So it's just fascinating. So I'm going to keep an eye out here to see if there's any comments. Tonight's one of those nights where I would love to have you asking questions because that's fun for me. And I'll just keep an eye over there. So I want to start out with the fun things. Many of you might not know this, but I'm from Florida, from Tampa, Florida. And it's kind of like a joke in my house that that's Florida. It's... When I was a kid growing up there, actually, before I tell that part, I want to say that last night we ended up watching Fried Green Tomatoes. And I think Nick and I thought it was a different movie. So we decided to watch it because the other one that we wanted to watch wasn't on yet. So as we're watching it, it's in the South, right? So these people all have Southern accents. And my one daughter, she has been bugging me for a while now to bring back my Southern accent. So when I was a kid growing up, actually I was looking for it today. I have a cassette tape somewhere of me on an airplane. I was flying to visit with my father, and I was going to Washington, D.C., and you hear me on this tape with my Southern accent. And I used to talk like this. I used to have a Southern drawl. So as I was flying, I was looking out the windows and I was saying, oh my, look at that. Look at the Washington Monument. And then I was talking about the different people on the plane, and I just had my Southern accent just going. And it was very interesting. And so then when I was moving here, and it must have been even before that, there was a point where I took on a belief around a Southern accent, and I thought a Southern accent was not that smart, because remember I had that program that I was running that I wasn't very smart. So I thought, oh my gosh, if I'm talking with this Southern accent, that means that I don't look very smart to people, so I better start changing the way that I talk. And when I moved from Florida to Beverly Hills and I worked on Rodeo Drive, I really changed my accent, because you just don't talk with that accent in Rodeo Drive at Beverly Hills at Vidal Sassoon, which is where I used to work. And so when my daughter was telling me that she wanted to have me bring back that accent, it got me thinking about the beliefs that I took on about myself and how I really, on so many levels, just didn't appreciate like who I was. And so when my daughter hears me talk like that, she loves it. And I was asking her, what exactly do you love about it? And she said, well, we don't have any kind of an accent. Like if you look at other countries, they're talking and they have all these accents that they're maybe German accents or English or British or Australian or something like that, and we're just kind of boring. So she said, when you talk with your Southern accent, it is interesting. And it was so fascinating for me to hear that from her, because when we're talking about the controller, I've told you guys many times there's that mind of ours that's the controller, and then those 3 buttons on the top that make everything happen: intention, attention, and perception. There's that perception button. So my perception was, and I was horrible about it. I was very judgmental. So if a guy had a Southern accent and he'd be talking with me with a Southern accent, I'd be like, no. He could be the brightest person on the planet, very interesting, kind, all these fabulous qualities. And I was so unconscious at that point that I would just be like, no, we're not going there. I can't even begin to have a boyfriend with a Southern accent. And so looking at it from my daughter's perception, looking at it from her point of view, it really, number one, felt good. And it gave me just another big insight to who I was and who I've become. So now I guess what I'm going to have to do is just go back and forth from my Southern accent to my, California accent. So I want you to think about your own life. Do you have anything that you grew up thinking this is not cool, or, it's embarrassing, or, like I thought, this would make me be like I was stupid or sounding stupid or any of those things? Look back at your childhood and think back to anything that might have been, something that kind of falls into that category. And again, when you're looking at anything from your timeline, you're never doing it with judgment. You're always doing it with a level of compassion, because we all just learn all this stuff. I mean, it's not like we're born coming out like that. We learn all these little programs along the way. So when you're understanding the program, it just is beneficial. It gives you a lot of insight to be able to, be in your power. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, and some of the things I'm going to bring up tonight, it's not meant to be heavy, but it is important to look at, because I think we're in such a moment. I know I've been saying this, but it's ramping up. And I'm talking to the therapist. I'm talking with different people that work with people. And it's hitting just a big point right now. So I've been pondering things over the week. And I came up with some notes on different things that I wanted to talk with you. And hold on one second. I'm just looking at something. Bear with me for a second.
You got messages and they're not showing up on there.
Nope, they're not. That's why I'm doing this. There we go.
Yeah, you've got
And
messages.
wait a minute, is this me? Yeah.
I'm trying to get them up here.
It's all right. I can just bring it up here. There. So I don't have any comments at this point, right?
Yeah, you do.
I do.
Yeah. You got the comments from Jennifer Aiken.
Jen's in the house?
Yeah.
I like talking with Jen. I also have my English accent. I have all these different accents. But the Florida one is what is the most natural for me because I grew up with it.
Catherine Glass.
Catherine's in the house.
And Alexandra.
Alexandra?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about going to that the Whole Life Expo, and I want to see her there. How come I'm not seeing the comments, though?
For some reason, I don't know. It's on your Facebook page. It's on the Audrey Newmont.
Oh, it's on the Audrey Newmont where I see the... Oh, you know what? This is all so interesting for me. So it's on Audrey...
Mm-hmm.
There's the comments, you guys. Hi! Now I have my friends. Yes. Oh, nice. Good to see you guys. Jen used to dress like a total geek. Well, white shirts. Oh, I'm going to talk about this for a minute because I think I might have said this before, but I think I need to say it again. We all have that perception of ourselves when we're growing up, and this is going to be a part of the conversation today because there's some things that I'm looking at that are kind of common across the board. So when I'm a kid and I'm being told, she's cute, but she's not that smart, and then I hit this moment where I'm not cute and like literally just all kinds of things are happening. When you're talking about being a geek, I told the story here not long ago of that time I was wearing those glasses and they were crooked and my mother I had my buck teeth going. I'm telling you, I was the geek in the classroom, probably in my whole grade, if not one of the top 5 in the school. And, when you grow up with a belief around yourself, it's like, it's a lot. And over a period of time, my appearance started changing. So I got back to being, she's not smart, but at least she's now cute again somewhat. And there is all the things that follow it. And it's important to keep being with it and keep looking at it and keep understanding where your thoughts are about yourself. And I'm going to bring up this thing now. And it's important that we all look at these things because I'm telling you, I'm seeing some things a lot more than I ever used to. So we've talked about this before where, well, I'm going to go into the story first and then I'm going to explain what this is. So there's a person that I was talking with, and in this person's belief about themselves, they kept thinking in their mind, I'm a bad person. And that was a strong belief. So it wasn't that they were actually doing bad things that were horrible. They were doing things that were bad, but not like, hurting other people physically or, things that most of us would consider like really, you're off the charts bad. It was just bad things, like not being very kind, not apologizing, things like that. But the program that was running is, I'm a bad person. So when we're looking at the thoughts that we run, and then we have those feelings that are attached to them, I've said this before and I'll say it again, that's creative. So when we're feeling the feelings and then there's that thought attached to it where we are a bad person, in this particular situation, and I'm going to add more to this, but in this particular situation, that opened a door. So now this person, I'm a bad person, they start getting intrusive thoughts that aren't their own thoughts. It's not something that this person wants to do. It's not something that this person believes in, but out of nowhere, they started getting intrusive thoughts on something that was wildly disturbing for them. So it's important to really understand when we have that going on and there are disturbing thoughts that aren't our own, it's not that's who you are. It's a point where you've got to get what's going on here. So instead of like taking it on that this is me, I'll give you an example of how these intrusive thoughts can come in. And I've had them myself. So sometimes our body chemistry, I was talking with my holistic doctor today, and sometimes our body chemistry, literally like too many hormones, things that are going on with your progesterone, testosterone, things like that can literally have an impact on the mind. So after I had my children, after I had my babies, and I'm in that postpartum, I would have these moments where I would have these dark thoughts, and I mean dark. Like my mind was picturing, I'm not even going to tell you what it is. And so there was a part of me, the first time it happened, I was like, what the heck is this? This isn't how I normally think. This isn't what normally goes on to me. And I finally worked my way out of it. I guess my hormones rebalanced, whatever. So after I had the next baby, there came those thoughts again. And then this time I was able to understand, oh, there's something with my hormones that's causing my mind to go into whatever dark thoughts. So when we don't have an understanding, like if I didn't know myself better and if I hadn't already been doing a lot of the work that I do, I might have gone into like, wow, I am disturbed. Like it's about me. Like my mind is messed up, rather than I'm having a moment and I have to keep dispelling these thoughts. I'm going to give you another example of this because that's one for if we are having like chemical imbalances in our system, which we do. So then there's another example of it where years ago I worked with a child who was around 8-9 years old, and they were having intrusive thoughts. It was like a voice that was directing her to do physical harm to another person. And it was wildly disturbing for this kid. And so again, I got to work with her. We got to talk about it. And there was a part of it where when we're having those thoughts, we have to understand our ability to be greater than the thought. So when I was working with her, it turned into, all right, so how do we be greater than that? And in this particular case, I'm literally working with her, and it's like, well, what does that look like? You know, when do these come up? You know, what's going on in the situation? Long story short, we ended up renaming it, and it was the glitch. So it wasn't her, it was a glitch that was taking place. So then we were able to work with it further and have her understand, little kid, have her understand her ability to be greater than the glitch. So then again, another case comes up, and this time the kid is 13. And so the reason why I bring all of this up is because I've been talking with other practitioners, and different people, and I'm understanding that there is a lot more of this going on. And so why is it more now than it used to be? So, and bear with me on this. This isn't a conspiracy or anything like this. This is literally cases that I've worked with, my own experience, and then this one that just came about very recently. And I mean, for all of the cases, there is an element to it where it's very disturbing for the person, because your mind is, I'm telling you, the controller. And when you don't feel like you're owning your own mind, there is a part of it where that can lead to going down that rabbit hole, and literally it can be wildly disturbing. And I'm not going to go into the details of that and what people have actually thought of doing around it. What I'm doing now is more wanting to give you information on why that can happen and things to do to prevent it from happening. So when we're talking about our brain is kind of like the consistency of tofu. And it's also got a lot of neurons that are firing all the time. There's a lot of electrical charges, little road maps that are being created all the time. So one thing, and then we'll go to the rest. One thing, I always am very adamant about this. When you're putting an electric charge in your ear that's bringing in the internet, believe it or not, that has an impact on the brain and therefore the mind. So there are certain things that you want to do that mitigate the possibility of your brain becoming hijacked, because that's kind of what it looks like sometimes. It's like your consciousness has been hijacked. And so use a cord. Keep the phone, keep the electricity, keep that, electromagnetic energy away from a very susceptible, very important part of your body. Another thing that I've been noticing is through music. So music is hypnotic, but also music has a certain level of hertz to it. It's got a certain level of, let's just call it vibration. And when we're listening to certain frequencies, that can have an impact, believe it or not. So if you have had moments like that, or if you know somebody that's had that, switch the music that you're playing. And also music with lyrics can be also another way of having your consciousness be hijacked. So listen to music that's music only, and something like classical is always good. Piano music, harp music, different things like that. And it's not for the rest of your life, it's for this moment while you're regaining your balance in your thinking, in your mind. Another thing, and I'm going to take a minute to check out your comments and see if there's any questions while I'm rattling on here. I've lost them? Oh,
Quite a few.
Oh, it's live here. There we go, like you did with Nick last night. There we are. Oh, yeah, there we are. Oh, Heather's in the house, Catherine. Wait, what are we talking about with piercings? All right. Yes, very much like a thought form attachment entity. So I was talking with my holistic doctor today, and when she's doing that machine, she can look at so many things that are going on with people, and there are a lot of entities that are taking place. So this can be an entity as well. And I got to say, for the people out there that don't really understand entities, it's not always that you're like possessed by an entity, like those movies that we've seen. It's more like it's different, and it's a whole conversation. And quite honestly, I'll have her in here on another show to talk about it. Nick works with entities. Catherine, I'm pretty sure you've worked with entities as well. And so it's not what people imagine it to be, but it can be this thing that has an impact on our thinking. And that's an important thing to look at. Yeah, they do suck the happy out. The Dementors. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that. So another way that these things can take place is through social media. And I know I've said this before. I'm going to say it again because I think it's wildly important for us to know if we're in there and we're scrolling, there is all these happy things. Like I personally don't mind scrolling occasionally, especially in Instagram, looking at silly animal videos. I like that. They make me happy. So I'll see these funny animal things and then all of a sudden, well, I don't usually scroll like that, but when people are just going through there looking at different reels, happy, and then all of a sudden it's like, and that can be another thing that has an impact where you're opening the door to something other than your intentions, your conscious, intentional thinking. So if you're finding in a moment, like especially that one TikTok, that's one of those ones that I've worked with a lot of people, and it's like, are you on there? Yeah, they get off of there from 1 week to the next. It is amazing the difference in the person. And so it's really important at this moment in time to there are different ways that we are having our body, mind, our spirit interrupted. And so when we're recognizing that, then you want to start taking that conscious new action, a new way to be with yourself. So as an example, I've had quite a few people who just turn all of that off for a while. And at first it's kind of like, whoa, number one, they have a whole bunch more time to do other things. And it is a shift in the homeostasis. So your homeostasis is like what's your normal. So at this point in time, a lot of people this is normal, and they're looking and they're being in here. You know these people. You might be those people, and it's all okay. But if it's no longer working for you, then you get to realign yourself. You get to make a shift with it. So breaking a habit, because that's a habit, breaking a habit, that first day is always like, whoa, this is not my normal. And important ahead of time, if you decide you're going to do something like this, have a plan ahead of time. Instead of doing this, what are the things that you want to do for yourself? What are those things that would be more like a reward? Not like I'm going to go clean up my room, or I'm going to get, in there and do whatever these other tasks are that we haven't been doing. Those can wait for a minute. You want to do something that would be somewhat rewarding. It could be as simple as, you know what, it would be rewarding to go into my computer and start clearing out these excess pictures. I don't know if you're anything like me, but I've got like way too many pictures in there. It's taken up a lot of my memory. So rather than going in and scrolling, I can go in there and start cleaning up stuff that doesn't belong and look back at some fun old memories. Maybe another rewarding thing would be, all right, so I'm seeing this memory of this person. I haven't talked with them for a while. Maybe it would be rewarding to call that person and actually be in contact via the phone. So when you are looking to make an adjustment with all of these things, believe it or not, 3 days, you'll start noticing a difference. Like I said, these clients come in and a week later, it's like they're a lot different. They're a lot more present. They're a lot more happy. They're a lot calmer. And it's like they can hear more clearly. Because when you get sucked into that place, it's like you're not present. It's almost like you're dissociated. So when you become more present, more in the moment, and more doing things that are right here and right now, not living in some, alternate reality, it changes. It changes a lot. So if you all have any questions at this point, let me know. Gloria's in the house. Hi, Gloria. All right, so again, Jonathan, who does acupuncture, he's an amazing person to do detox, and he's in where they live. I forget where you live, Catherine, but he does online work. But he clears possessions. You know, because we all knew about that movie a lot of years ago, or we watched these stupid horror movies, people think of possessions as something like you're literally like possessed and you have no ability to, you know, own your mind at all. And it's more subtle than that. Unless, of course, I'm telling you, some of the drugs that are out there right now, I tell you, I look at all these different things on the internet, and there is a video of this woman, and she is like getting into all these contorted positions, and she's literally on the side of the road possessed. Now, she's possessed, and you have to be really clear for everybody. This is not the time to be working with or using any man-made drugs. None. Only the salt of the earth is what I want to say, because you look at somebody like that and it's probably a man-made drug. And I'm telling you, like I had said last week or the week before, there's a lot of problems right now with fentanyl, and you might think that, you know, you're getting something that is, I don't know, whatever, and they can put just a little tweak of fentanyl in there, and many, many people right now are struggling with that. So when we're talking about possession, again, that can be through the avenue of drugs. And this is not a moment with experimenting with any kind of man-made things, because there's all these different forms of possession. And that, you know that I've worked in addiction for years, that is beyond anything I've seen in my 61 years of being on the planet. And so, again, when we're talking about possession, be clear and intentional on what it is that you're choosing in your life, because this is such a moment, and I can't stress it enough. It's a good time to just back away and really own your innate inner power. And these are different ways when you're taking this out, you're putting that in, and you're owning that ability for you to be clear thinking and grounded and centered and focused. How did I become a hypnotherapist? Hold on. I've been watching creative candy being made. That's another thing I like. I like watching the little food things, new ways to make yummy things, painting. I mean, there's some fun things that you can look at that give me creative ideas, and like making fun candy. That can be a very fun thing to do. You're asking, hi, John Grimay's in the house. How did I become a hypnotherapist? That's a really good question. I had been a really big mess, like a big mess. And I finally realized, because this therapist said, your daughter's all good, but you're not. And so I went to this therapist for like a year, and I just during that time read all these different books and, you know, was in the process of straightening myself out. Then I had been told by somebody that you might want to go to Agape Spiritual Center. So I decided to try that avenue, and Spirit led me. I mean, sometimes for me, you know, Nick is his own version of how he operates. And for me, I don't hear things, I don't see things like he does, but there's a certain pull that I have. Like doing this show is a calling. It's not like Audrey, the ego, needs to do it, but it's something that I feel called to do. So when I started going to Agape, I was called to become a practitioner there. So I went through 4 years of training and became a practitioner. And then in the later part of it, I met Nick, who's a hypnotherapist, and I was like, Wow, that's pretty interesting. And when I would tell people I was a hypnotherapist, they'd be like, their eyes would glaze over. Spiritual? They wanted nothing to do with it. So I decided to go to hypnotherapy training because I was watching what he was doing, and it was very interesting. And I'm really glad that I did, because having that spiritual foundation first, and then understanding about the mind, the controller, and how to hypnotize, like, myself and other people, that is valuable. You go straight to the root of the problem. And so that's how I became a hypnotherapist. And then I have studied a lot of science that I incorporate to all of this as well. So that's kind of how I became to the position that I'm at this point. And by the way, I didn't say it earlier, but I'm having a class that I'm doing on Thursday nights. Tomorrow is the fourth night. You can go onto YouTube. I believe it's under Audrey Newmont, and you can watch that first night. That is a lot of the foundation of the spiritual along with the science, and it really helps to understand that number one driver. So you got to remember, this is the car, the soul. There's that number one driver, and then there is the conscious adult driver in the front seat and the kid in the back seat. So when you're looking at all the stuff that I'm talking about and understanding what your mind is doing and understanding these habits that we take on and these beliefs about who we are, when you're tapping into the number one driver, that's everything. And the older I get, the more I use that, the more I understand that, that's where your power is. So I've been finding in a lot of sessions, it's like I don't get to that information with my clients because we're looking at their stuff and we're understanding the tools, that fear into power tool, the constructive communication, the timeline, which is huge. So we're using a lot of that stuff and understanding why they're where they are, and more importantly, where they're going. So that whole bunch of information about the number one driver kind of gets on the back seat. So I created that class that we're doing tomorrow because I want everybody to understand that better, especially as we're going through such a moment in time. I mean, I'm curious, and I want you to write in the comments, do you feel it? Do you feel that this is like a big-ass moment in time? I mean, there's things that I'm looking at in the world. There's this energy that I feel. There are these challenges that people are coming in with that are like, for instance, having these intrusive thoughts and having this inability to, really get with the program. And so when we're all experiencing that moment, when you understand how to use that first driver and allow that to be your source and allow that to guide you, there goes the intrusive thoughts. There goes the entity. Because when you are using that driver in those kind of a moment, one of the ways that it gets done, I show, like, for instance, that little girl. It's a glitch. You're greater than the glitch. You are the owner of that mind. So you literally tell that glitch, you're done. You're out of here. And because she's that age, I had to use it in her language. But like for this person that I just now was talking to, and they've got these major intrusive thoughts that are nowhere, shape, or form who the person is. Because that person is older and they can understand it. I literally said to them, you're the light that flows through you. You are that I am. And when you have those intrusive thoughts, they're dark. You're bigger by incredible. I mean, it's like undescribable how much greater we are than those thoughts. But you have to know it and you have to own it. And then you have to look at it and say, I rebuke you. You are done. You are out of there. I am that, and you are not. And there is no place for you here. You're done. You're out. And you own that, and you keep being in that space, and you keep being that bright light of source. Whatever it is that you want to call it, this person in particular doesn't like the word God. I get it. I didn't used to either. But now I have a new understanding of what that is. It's literally in our DNA. Yahweh is in our DNA. We are that, and in our cells, in our being, we are so powerful. So when we understand that, when you're having a moment, then you can use that information, and there's a lot of information around it. So like as an example for this person I was just talking to, there was a part of it as well where that part where they had been not a good person. This is another important part of things. For this person, once they understood, it's not that you're not a good person. You have learned to be those things that you were with your consciousness. So those things that you did, the lack of apologizing, that part of holding on to, I'm a bad person, that's not who you are. It's what you believed. It's the program that you took on. So now in the moment, when you understand the first driver, you understand your ability to be that conscious, intentional driver in the front seat. You have that intention. What are you doing in moving forward? But more importantly, when we don't let go of the past and we're holding on to, I did this thing, it's the guilt, it's the shame, it's the remorse, it's whatever those things are. That's what opens the door. And that's what holds you in that space. So when you're able to acknowledge it, and it's not about being wrong, it's not about being bad, it's what we did with the consciousness that we had. When you're in the choice point and you're able to say, I authentically apologize. Wasn't my intention to offend you. Wasn't my intention to hurt you. I did what I did, and I see clearly now how that doesn't work for me, how it doesn't work for you, and I am letting it go. That's a power point. That's a power, I'm done with it. So that opens up to that light, that brightness that we are. So in this person's particular situation, it was like watching a dam break. It was like, whoosh, and there was this relief, and there was this ability to be back in the presence and to own a new moment. It was amazing. And so I'm pretty sure with what happened, there go the intrusive thoughts. There goes that guilt, the shame, the judgment is huge. So why do we do all of this is because in this moment, when you have all this understanding, then using that information, using that awareness, you get to own your power. We all get to own our power. And to be clear, we all have things that we work through that we're in the midst of. I just had something last week I had to work through where I was offended or upset about whatever. And it's a process to look at it. And it's like no judgment on it. It's compassion. But when we keep letting go of the angst, we're being that. We're not having a door that's open to whatever darkness that might be going on. Hi, Kieran. Nice to have you here. Good to see you. It's much better to understand when you have the tools and then someone shows you how to use them. Yes. Alchemy. All right, hypnotherapy. I like that. Alexandra says, we are all coming to a head of understanding who we are and how we got here. We are the game. We're it. You're right. Core star, exactly. Hello there, Mr. Steele. Yeah, so when we're looking at all of this, it's super important to stay out of the judgment with regard to everything, because that judgment, it's that thing that keeps you stuck. And I'm going to go into this next thing that I want to talk about, because when I'm working with my clients, there's many times that I see common denominators with people. And when I see that, it's not just them that are experiencing it. It's a lot of people. So, and I know I've talked about this before, but if you've heard it before, I want you to think about hearing it with new perception. One thing that is very, very common is we're all in the choice point, and this is more in people with relationships. So what I'm finding is, being in this choice point right here, right now, a lot of people are holding on to, somebody did something to me back here. Like, for instance, in this particular story that I'm telling about this person, there was a lot of lack of forgiveness. So what somebody had done back here, I know that the person apologized, they still held on to it. Well, you did this. So when we're in relationships, and I know that for many of us, myself included, this isn't what we were taught. We're always in the back seat watching our parents in the front seat, and our parents learn from their parents. So there's a lot of it where it's like, you did this, and how could you? And I can't believe that you did it, and I'll let it go, but I'm not going to forgive it. So we hold on to it in our heart. And what I'm seeing with a fair amount of people, it's like the partner does whatever back here, and then the partner gets better, and things get better, and then they do it again. And then there's a whole nother conversation about it. Things get better, and the partner does it again. So for the person who is in the seat of having it done to them, could be male, female, it doesn't matter. This is just something I see across the board. When the person does it the first time, when we don't let it go, when we keep holding on to it in the heart, there's a part of it where it's unconscious, where we can be thinking, they're probably going to do it again, or they did it, and I don't know that I can let it go because that really hurt and it felt really bad. So we keep holding on to the thing, whatever the person did, and of course, the attention is on it. Then the person does the thing again, and then we're validated. See, you did it again. I can't trust you. I'm not safe with you. And I'm not kidding. This is like many people. And there's that validation. See, I told you. And so then the relationship's even more strained and things happen, but I'm going to give it another try. And then the thing happens again. And in a lot of these cases, I'm just going to say, the person that's been done to, they're not looking at what they've done. They're not looking at their part in it. So it's a continual like, see, this is what happened, and I'm a victim to that situation. So the reason why I bring this up is because it's important for all of us to learn and really get. There are relationships where if they keep doing it, maybe you need to get off of my timeline, and I don't need to have that kind of relationship with you. And you're not holding on to the anger. You're literally, maybe you write them a letter, maybe you tell them in person, I don't like being treated like this. I'm going to take myself out of the equation. That's all okay to do. But there's some relationships, like for instance, if your parents, if your family, if your, certain relationships, it's just like, that's where we can learn. That's where we grow as people. But one of the most important parts of this is when somebody back here, when we have the situation that happens, and the person authentically says, I apologize. It's super important for both parties to learn from it, both parties to learn from it and authentically let it go. Because if you keep holding on to the anger about it, I promise you it'll show up again and you won't deal with it the same kind of way. And I have seen marriages break up over things like this. So when the person acknowledges and gets their behavior, and then we're able to say, all right, then this is what we're doing in moving forward. You're coming up with a treat me like this, talk to me like this. This is how we want to be in the relationship, and you make that agreement. This is the important part. And this is where across the board I keep seeing this is why it continues to happen. And it's important, this part, because the person who's done whatever, a lot of times it's an unconscious behavior. They literally aren't paying attention that they're doing this thing that their partner, whatever way, shape, or form, doesn't like. So if you're the person that it's being done to, own your word. You just did this. Remember how we saw that back here? You just did this again. It's not working. I feel frustrated. I feel angry. I feel all of these things. Here's the impact that it has on our relationship. And you keep being a mirror for the other person. The amount of times that I get involved because I'm the therapist, it's like, what did you say when they did this? Nothing. I just let it go. It just is what it is. I just thought it would change. I thought it would get better. The amount of times that it's like the attention is on, I knew they were going to do it, or whatever, and they don't own their word with the person, that owning the word is what will make it better and make it finally be a done thing. And you guys have heard the story about that one situation I had with a family member. 5 times I had to tell them. And the key, the first time, just matter of fact, hey, this is what's going on. Second time, I can't say it the same way, but I'm still using the constructive communication. Third time, I'm starting to get a little amped up. By the 4th time, I was furious. I had to bring out my southern accent. I was so furious. By the 5th time, I was sobbing, and in me showing the pain that caused, there went the behavior. It was done. So it's important to really get, this is a moment in time where we want our hearts to be cleared out. We want it to be where if we're going to keep somebody in your life, work through the thing, let it go. And if they do it again, be a great mirror. Literally let them know, here's the behavior. Let's bring it back to what works for both of us. Is all this making sense? Take responsibility for your part. Yes, Alexandra. And therein lies the growth. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, it's 5 minutes. I have 5 more minutes with you all. So I'm going to say, in these last 5 minutes, when I say that it's super important to have our heart open, our heart is the most important thing. Our heart literally has a little brain in it, and that is our connection to the first driver. So when we have too much junk in the heart, it's like the junk in the trunk. It's like you're not driving full throttle and going intentionally where you want to go. So when you are doing that process of understanding, what am I doing? What am I doing in the world? How am I showing up? We're already into the very end of January, beginning of February here. Are you still in 23's stuff? Are you still doing old things that it's like, I don't want to be doing this anymore? So there is a great opportunity right now, and I think it's important for all of us to be grounded and centered and focused with our hearts in love, with our hearts in light. The more information that I'm looking at, the more it is reaching a really interesting point. And there is a part of us where we're moving consciously, being guided, being directed, being shown, being led to our greatest good, or we are getting sucked into the abyss. So if you know that there's certain habits that you're doing that you didn't break before, take a moment and look at them. It's just a habit. But it's at the moment now where we are called to be the greatness of who we are. So maybe start listening to some books that make sense for you. Like you all know that I really love Paul Selig. Start with I Am the Word. That's a very good book for redirecting your mind and to get new information. Michael Racia is another one. Both of these are channeled books. Alexandra has an excellent book. She's in the audience tonight. Look for sources of new information that will uplift you. Look for things to do that are more in nature. Look for different opportunities to be with people who are in love, who love you, who appreciate you. Keep leaning into those feel-good things as you're changing the habits. Literally take out pen and paper and write down a list of things. These are, and put that in your imagination. Literally picture yourself doing whatever the things are that bring you to the next level of that highest part of you. And, hang with people that are like-minded. Another thing, we have a game night that we do once a month. Create game nights. It's fun. We don't talk about any politics on that night. We don't talk about anything heavy. I don't even think these people know we're therapists, for God's sakes. We meet at the office. But we laugh so hard, and it's just a lot of fun. So maybe bring friends over for a game night. Do things that are lighthearted and do things that are fun. And maybe go to that Conscious Life Expo and go see Alexandra there. I think I'm going to show up on that Saturday, Alexandra. I think it's coming up soon. Carla's in the house. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you so much. Last week the week before, we had this glitch that was happening with my intro here. So now I get to see you guys, and I'm very, very grateful for your support. I'm going to have a guest on next week. It's going to be somebody who's a mystery guest, and I'm very excited. But when I'm having these nights when I'm here by myself and I'm just rattling on, it's really, really nice to see you in here and to see your comments. And, I just value you all so, so much. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I guess my time is up. So I love you all very, very much. Go have a great week. Do some of those things. And when you do them, put them in the comments. I like to hear what you're up to. Okay? Love you lots. Good night.